Mario Cristobal has evolved since he got back to Miami, and I think that evolution is going to continue.
You are Locked On Canes, your daily podcast on the Miami Hurricanes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I am Alex Donno, and on this episode of Locked On Canes, all the details for Miami versus Notre Dame, November 7th. We're going to break them down. We'll talk about the old school intensity on the practice field and what Miami has shown on the field this past season, especially, and how it compares, how it's similar, but how it's different to the glory days of the program. But I want to talk Mario Cristobal as we bring on a very good friend of ours here, Jim Grieshaber, a.k.a. Gries, who hosts the post-cast shows after every Miami Hurricanes football game. Gries is the first reaction you get here on Locked On Canes. And Gries, I got this question from a listener, and I thought this would be a perfect one for us to answer together, and I want to hear your take on it first. So we get this question from DatDude239, who says, what part of Mario Cristobal's coaching do you think he needs to improve on for the upcoming 2026 season? What do you think?
Every element of it, every aspect of it. And I believe that's exactly what Mario would tell you, because he's an achiever and he's a winner, because all of us should be looking to improve in every way, every single day, right? That being said, we do it in our jobs, Alex. We always want to get better. We want to hear the feedback, the critiques. You know, Mario's got some people in his life who he can call anytime he wants, like Nick Saban, for example. And anytime his ego gets big, he has a system in place to check that. But when I say that, you're asking for specifics. Of course, we want to get better in every day in every way. And I want to add, too, the expectations are different now. This is no longer a rebuild. This is no longer a restore. This is a top 5 program that should be competing for chips every year. And that type of program has to be coached differently than the type of program it was back on the way up, on the ascent, right? So when I look at Mario, and everybody's going to say what I'm going to say next, and I'm just going to say it because everybody says it because it's true. It's the in-game stuff with Mario, right? Because how can you even, I've said it before, I'd be an idiot to question his recruiting. His recruiting is elite. I'd be an idiot to criticize the culture that he has instilled back into this program, because this culture, and we're going to get into this later in the show, is right there, close to where it's ever been under any coach. And I said any coach. So all you Mario haters, you have to give him those two things at a super elite level. You just have to. And then he brought in Corey Heatherman. You got to give him that. What the defense did, you have to give him that. What he did was a miracle there with Heatherman, right? And then bringing in guys like Ward and Beck. I mean, it's just been amazing, right? The whole world's talking about us again. We're in the national championship game. All that being said, Alex, it's always the in-game stuff with Mario. You know, it's the in-game stuff. It's not stepping on the throats of opponents when you have a lead. In the Cam Ward year, got better last year, and he improved upon that. I mean that. Sincerely, he did. He improved upon that. The in-game stuff, the fourth down decisions, the timeout usages, the challenges, things like that. In the heat of the moment, none of us will ever know what that's like to be that quick at the drop of a dime to be able to do that stuff. But you have to be. You have to have the quality control in place, because it could cost you a game. It could cost you a championship, right? It has in the past with other teams and with us, for that matter. We've had times and moments where, I mean, I don't even want to mention the Georgia Tech game, right? Things like that he's improved upon. His accountability's gotten a lot better. I love that he's got that chip on his shoulder for the University of Miami, having played here. I like how he talks about the difference between then and now, and how you can still have that same mindset without expressing it the way we did back in the 80s and 90s, and still have that chip and still have that anger that the program runs on. I love all that about him. There he is behind me. That's our coach, Alex.
Yeah.
We get behind him. But the in-game stuff, the way that they played with leads toward the end of the season. Now, the November record, the unranked teams, the Louisvilles, the SMUs, those games can't happen anymore. They cannot happen. He cannot lose those games. Everybody loses one once in a while, but he loses them every year, and it has to stop now. It has to stop right now, okay? And I think it will this year, for the record. But all that being said, he's gotten better with his weaknesses every year. He has. I mean, when you see improvement, and then he's so elite in all those other areas, at some point you just have to get behind the guy and root for him, because he has restored this program. I probably surprised you a little bit with this answer, but I've been a big critic. And if he screws up in game again during the season, I'll be just as big. But I have to be objective and I have to be honest. And the best thing I could do in answering this question is to go that route. His biggest weaknesses have shown improvement every year. But even in the national championship game, Alex, the block punt was a big part of it, but we reverted back. We did not do what we did against Ohio State. We did not take the chances that we had early on to get a lead and keep it. We didn't do it. Louisville was a different story. SMU and Indiana were almost the same thing. The Ohio State game was perfection.
Yeah.
The Hurricanes at their best and Mario Cristobal at his best. And once I saw that, and I know that he can do it, I'm happy to see him keep improving. But that I want to be cautious with that too. And I'll wrap with this. Improvement only gets you so far. You have to bring up those other areas to match the areas in which you're elite, whether it's going to be you, people you hire, whatever you have to do, if you want to achieve the ultimate success that Mario wants to achieve worse than any of us want him to achieve it, for the record. He wants to win more than any of us want him to. Any of us. I don't care who you are. Mario wants to win more than you, period. More than me, more than all of us. And I believe that when you have that and you're constantly working and constantly grinding and being there at 4 a.m. and getting better every day, then you're going to achieve that. If he doesn't go forward more this year with those things, then I'll be there to critique him. But until then, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt for what he's done year in and year out to get better.
And I don't have a lot to add to that. And to what you said there, it's why I opened the show saying it's been an evolution. And I know, like you mentioned, Mario wants to win more than anybody, especially he wants to win at Miami. I think the desire for him at Miami is different because he loves his alma mater so much. And so, you know, he had certain reputations when he left Oregon to Miami. People thought he's never going to evolve his mindset offensively, but he went out and got an offensive coordinator who came from an air raid background. I don't think anyone would have imagined an offense under Cristobal could open up the way the Cam Ward offense did, and I believe the way the Darien Mensah offense will. You know, and yeah, everything you talk about the in-game coaching, it's true and it's relevant, but I've seen him working on it. I know he embraces analytics more than he used to, and he delegates to more people because he wants to improve those areas. So the evolution is there, and I want to see him continue that evolution, Gries, because, you know, Indiana game aside, and obviously in Indiana, you know, they punished everybody on their schedule last year. But, you know, that game aside, after the SMU loss on, I saw in-season evolution, and I talked about this on my episode this morning when Miami stopped playing with their food. Like after that wake-up call against SMU, they were a lot more decisive. They opened up the playbook. They weren't afraid to score points and blow teams out because they saw how necessary that was to impress the CFP committee. And I think that lesson was learned in season, Gries. And every year is different, and not all the players are the same, and you have some new coaches on the staff, but hopefully that momentum from the latter part of last season carries into this year where they will no longer take their foot off of a team's throat when they have the opportunity to put these teams away.
I'll say yes to that, but the pick six against Ohio State, they scored 17 points on offense, right? Indiana, not a huge scoring game. Ole Miss, 10 points to win the first playoff game. So what I'm really looking forward to reframe this and not dwell on the past is Mensah with Fletcher and all those receivers, because to me, 2 years ago, it was Cam Ward without a big threat of a running game. Last year, it was a big threat of a running game. Carson Beck was not anywhere near as elite as Cam Ward. So we didn't have the offense and the defense meshing at the same time either, because it was all offense the year before, mostly defense this past year. But we also were not really as balanced offensively. I think Mensah is going to be able to do a lot more than Beck did. I really do. And I think a lot of it with Beck, I don't know what it was, maybe still coming off the injury or whatever, but he didn't light the place on fire like Cam Ward did. So maybe Mensah comes in and does that, but then you also have a 1,000-yard back in Mark Fletcher Jr. So I think this has a chance to be our most balanced offense since the Ken Dorsey days, really, honestly speaking. And the defense, you know, is going to be elite. So I think this is going to be our best all-around team in 20 years plus.
I like it. Well, I want to get into how the intensity of 2025 and hopefully these 2026 Canes stacks up with the glory days, because Gries and I both, we got to, few more gray hairs than we like to admit. We go pretty far back with this team, so I want to get some historical perspective. You want to keep it locked right here. We're only getting started on this new Locked On Canes. The NHL postseason is in full swing, where every shift matters, every moment is intense, and the pressure is at its highest. And just like performance matters on the ice, it matters off the ice too. That's where Rougiette comes in. Rougiette offers treatments designed to help you get ready and stay ready when it matters. Their top option, Rougiette Ready, combines clinically proven ingredients in a simple mint that dissolves under your tongue. It works fast, often in about 15 minutes, and can last up to 36 hours. And they also offer Go Long, designed to help with both performance and control. It's all about confidence and feeling like yourself again. So head to Rougiette.com/LockedOnNHL and get 15% off your ED treatment. That's RUGIET.com/LockedOnNHL for 15% off. Rougiette, performance medicine for men. My friends, if you haven't joined the Everydayer Club yet, we were answering questions on our morning episode today from the All Access Everydayers, where you get one-on-one texting with me, exclusive episodes, newsletters, other great benefits. You want to join today, go to lockedoncanes.supercast.com or click the link in the show notes below to become an All Access Everydayer right now. Thank you for making Locked On Canes your first listen, as we're joined by the postcast king, throwing up that U, our guy Gries. So, Gries, you are you go back decades with this team, as I do, and as a lot of our listeners do. We got a good mix of the young and the old. You high school and college kids. You don't necessarily remember the 80s and 90s. Gries and I certainly do. So you see the way Miami played last year, Gries. Any major similarities or any notable differences you see from kind of the current age now of what Mario Cristobal is building versus maybe some of the teams Cristobal played on back in the day?
I think that this team has even more of a nasty mindset than the ones that Mario played on. And I think he was coming in on the tail end and they were playing for chips. But remember, it was Gino Torretta, Lamar Thomas, Horace Copeland. They're bombing the ball downfield. Mario was in pass pro most of the time at the University of Miami. What he has taken and instilled here is that dominant running game to go along with it that came under Jimmy Johnson and some of the other coaches he's coached as a grad assistant, as a head coach, and been with Nick Saban and guys like that, and had the mentors that he's had throughout the course of his career, starting with Jimmy Johnson, right? So thinking about that and the mindset that he's brought in here, I believe he wants to dominate the line of scrimmage on both. I don't believe, I know he wants to dominate the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. He wants to run it down your throat. He wants to score a ton of points. He wants to control the line of scrimmage. He wants to be mean. He wants to be nasty. He wants that swagger, but controlled. And you can't really duplicate a bunch of hungry kids from the inner city who never had a thing, and Michael Irvin, who had all those siblings and they'd be fighting over cereal to have with water in the morning. You can't duplicate that in the NIL era where these kids are making money. You just can't. I mean, it's a bygone era. It's not going to be what it was from that standpoint. But I wonder if you caught this the other day where Ruben Bain wore the Sap jersey off the bus to rookie camp.
Yes, I loved that.
Called him and said, hey, that's my city. And so the connection between the old and the new, and Sap was there when I was in school. That's how far I go back with the rock and roll. Shout out to Rohan Marley. And that's my dude right there. And then, of course, Ray Lewis. And those were the days when I was in school there. But coming up as a fan, I have pictures of me with the 89 championship hat on. The first night that I became a Hurricanes fan was 1984 in the Orange Bowl. And that was Miami coming out of nowhere to shock the Blue Bloods throughout the 80s. And then the swagger came and we went in their field and we beat them, and then we pissed on their field on the way off. That's not going to happen anymore, right? But the way that Mario is building this culture, it doesn't have to, because he wants to take your soul at the line of scrimmage in every game. And I think that's a big difference from even when he played here. And I think that he has a chance, and I'm going to say this, I think he has the chance to build the most elite culture that we've ever had with this program. And I actually think he's on his way to doing that, Alex. I really do.
Yeah, I what you said really gets me thinking. I think physically the differences between now and the previous glory days were I've never seen, in terms of the roster, a collection of players that are this physically large, right? Because like back in the day, obviously you had the hard hitters and you had the nastiness, but it's a little bit more predicated on speed, where now it's more predicated on power. And they also, of course, they always look for speed. There's some really fast players on the roster. It's not like, Malachi Tone.
More like McKinney and Will Fork and those guys.
Yeah.
More
Yeah,
like
right.
that.
Right. So it's more predicated on the line of scrimmage and the power that it was even back in those days. And then I thought you said it right, like in terms of the actual culture. I mean, there's different ways to reach the same destination of greatness, where like, there was maybe a little bit more anti-establishment and like anger back in those days, where now it's more like focused professionalism, for lack of a better term. And it's not to say they weren't professional back then, but it's just it's a little bit more polished, I think, the mindset these days, which I think is it's just a reflection of the evolution of the times. And I think Cristobal understands that. I think he understands what it means to coach in this modern era. And all this to say, is for as much as we think this thing is trending in the right direction, Gries, we obviously have not yet captured natty number 6. So, we need to hope, and I expect that what's being built right now is sustainable. When you look at the acquisitions of talent that are happening on this roster, that, within the next couple of years, we can start talking about the 6th, maybe the 7th natty down the road. And I think the way this group is focused can help get us there.
Without a doubt. And it's always going to be in the trenches. And then you're going to have the skill players, right? You're not always going to have a Malachi Tony, because there's only one Malachi Tony, right?
Yeah.
You're not always going to have a Michael Irvin or a Ray Lewis, and you're not always going to have an Ed Reed, right? But what you are going to have is a bunch of hungry kids who want the chance to become that. And some will, most won't, right? That's just the reality. But I think that the culture of competing every day against each other, and I think of Maui Noah with Bain and Mesidor as a perfect example. How much better 3 first-round draft picks that went against each other every day for a couple of years, day in and day out. And Mario used to say it, nobody's going to test them more than they tested each other. And it proved itself in the fact that they were taken in the first round. Now they have to take the next steps once they get there. But I think that kind of competition day in and day out on Green Tree is what made this program. Us against the world made this program. And I think that this team is getting to the point again where they're really going to believe that the stiffest competition they face every day is the man staring them in the eyes every day. And once they master that and they get that mindset down, no other team, they'll face the best players in the nation with their schedules in the playoffs, things like that. But they will never in their own minds compete harder than they do against each other. And they'll never face anybody better than the man across from them every day in practice. And once you create that kind of environment, which I believe we are literally right there, right? And maybe already there, right? I mean, it's debatable. But once that takes place within any program, that's when you really know you're elite.
Yep. And, an opportunity to show that they're elite is going to come November 7th, this upcoming season. Now, listen, Mario would hate that we're doing this because there's like 8 games that are going to take place before then. So, I know we're not taking the 1-0 mentality, and I don't want any Miami players to be looking this far ahead. But, Gries, we got the kickoff time for Miami at Notre Dame. That came out this week, 7:30 p.m., as if there was any doubt. I mean, that had to be prime time. I don't think anyone doubted that. 7:30 p.m. on NBC, and there's already a betting line for that game with Notre Dame favored by 5.5. Your thoughts?
I think I'm putting $500 on Miami right now because that's a great number. That's
money line, baby, money line.
I think, Alex. Why not right now? But I'll say this, man. It's great for college football. As much as we hate Notre Dame and we hate them like poison. They've been entitled. They're like that rich kid in your class at school that had everything you ever wanted and you couldn't have it, and everything always went his way no matter what he did or didn't do. That's been Notre Dame in our lifetime, right? Last year, they finally got punched in the face and got left out of something, and they really didn't like it. So CJ Carr can say whatever he wants. The Irish fans can say whatever they want. They've had this game circled for a year, not quite a year, since August of last year, and they will. But in seriousness, right? We manufacture this hatred. It's hatred based on competition. It's hatred based on football. But I will say this, for the sport itself, for the University of Miami, and for the University of Notre Dame, these two teams playing each other under the lights in South Bend in November, and maybe the most meaningful college football game of the year, if not just one of them, that's only good for all of us, for everybody involved. We all win in that scenario. The players win, the schools win, the fans win, everybody wins. So be grateful for the opportunity to refocus your hatred on the Golden Dome.
I love it. Well, I want to send a huge thank you to Gries, who does a great job, not only on this show every single week, but once that season rolls around, you're going to see him and hear him on the post-cast episodes immediately after every Miami Hurricanes football game. Follow him on X at @JimGries_. Follow me at Alex Donno and on Locked On Canes. Let's throw those U's up one more time on this glorious Friday, and we will talk to you again next time on another episode of Locked On Canes. We are part of the #1 sports podcast network, the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.